Good evening, Yorktown. Welcome to tonight's Town Board Work Session meeting. My name is Matt Slater, Town Supervisor. It is April 14th. This is our first teleconference Town Board meeting in the history of the town of Yorktown in a direct response to the coronavirus pandemic. As you can see on your screens, I'm joined by our Town Board members and Town Clerk. We have Councilman Tom Diana, Councilman Ed Lachterman. On the phone, we have Councilman Vishnu Patel and Councilwoman Alice Roker. We also have with us our Town Clerk, Diana Quast, and Town Attorney, Adam Rodriguez. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise for the pledge and join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
We're going to ask for a quick moment of silence, remembering all those impacted by the ongoing pandemic, our neighbors in Yorktown who have lost their lives, and of course, the first responders who continue to answer the call whenever we have an emergency.
Yes.
Thank you. So again, I'm here in Town Hall in the Town Board room. It's a little bizarre talking to an empty room. Our Town Clerk is who I want to genuinely thank for making this happen, Diana. So thank you so much for your leadership in bringing teleconferencing to the town of Yorktown. Our Town Clerk and our Deputy Town Clerk are in the adjoining room where they are participating from there. Again, we have our Town Attorney and the rest of our Town Council remotely. We do have Tom Ciangela, the best TV producer you can find in the town of Yorktown, in the back room, making sure that folks at home are able to participate and see the action of our town. I want to thank for making this happen, Diana. And very briefly, I think we had some feedback there, but very briefly, I just wanted to provide two quick updates. In regards to the storm, I want to thank Highway Superintendent Paganelli, who's probably still out there chopping down trees. As of 7:15, Con Edison had 22 customers in the town of Yorktown without power. NYSEG's number is down to 234. Route 202 was reopened a little while ago, and I understand a very frustrating scenario. We were out last night. Highway Superintendent Paganelli was out very late last night waiting for crews to arrive, but happy to report that for the most part, it seems our customers are coming back online and expect to be back online. Thank Highway Superintendent Paganelli. And Diana, could you mute Councilman Patel because I think he's watching on his website. Thank you. And as for COVID-19, we did release new numbers earlier today. The new number for the town of Yorktown is 310 confirmed cases. In Westchester County, the new number is 20,191 confirmed cases. That's an increase of 405. And in New York State, the number has now surpassed 200,000, and we are at 202,208. That's an increase of 7,177. As a reminder, these are cumulative numbers. We don't get the breakdown of who's resolved, but total at this point in time, we have 310 confirmed cases in the town of Yorktown. So I'm going to, why don't we have, I know I've introduced everyone before, but if we could go around quickly and also use it as an opportunity to test our equipment here. Councilman Diana.
Hello, Matt. Councilman Diana here.
Great. Councilman Lachterman.
Councilman Lachterman here. Hello, everyone.
And Councilwoman Roker.
Hi, everyone. It's Alice Roker.
And we have Councilman Patel. Councilman, hello? Reminder, these are cumulative numbers.
Hello?
We don't get the breakdown of... We have our town attorney, Adam Rodriguez.
Adam Rodriguez here.
All right. We also have with us our town planner, first item on the agenda, John Teg. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm here.
Fantastic. So the first item on tonight's work session agenda is the battery storage law, something that we've been that's been kicking around since last year, something that we picked the ball back up on this year.
Hello? Hello?
Councilman, Councilman, you have to mute. Yeah, can you mute because there's feedback.
Hello?
We also have with us our town planner.
There is somebody speaking on another line. There's two sounds are coming. Go over.
Councilman, do you have it? Do you watch?
Yeah,
Councilman Patel, if you turn off your TV volume.
Or the website while we're doing this. Okay. John Tegeter. So we're here talking about battery storage. I know that you've been working on this for quite some time with your staff. I really want to thank you for your efforts here. Why don't you walk us through the latest edition of the amendments and so which have been circulated to the board, and we can have a conversation about what the new pieces are.
Okay. I also have been working with Adam Rodriguez as well on it. Basically, the major changes, as you may recall, you may not, that in the latter part of January 2020, NYSERDA updated their battery storage model law, and they made some significant changes. There was plenty of changes, quite a bit of them. The hallmark of the changes really is that, if you recall, they were recommending, and we had in our first several drafts of the law, three tiers of battery storage in terms of their sizes and their uses. Tiers 1 and 2 are generally used for mostly smaller scale residential properties. And tier 3 was essentially what we see when we look at, for instance, Gomer Street property that was before you a couple of times, which is a large scale battery storage installation that is designed to provide a good amount of power back into the grid. What they've done in this second draft model law is they've compressed that down from 3 tiers into 2. So basically, tier 2 is the big stuff, 600 kilowatts and above, and all the other things that were in tier 1 and 2 are now just in that single tier. They've gone on to eliminate a lot of definitions, a lot of the descriptions of the smaller battery systems. For instance, there was a table in there that described types of batteries and their limitations in terms of how much power they can provide. All of that has been removed presently. It does go on to, as I said, remove a lot of definitions and add some pertinent definitions. So we went through and basically modeled it after this latest draft, and then we tailored it to some things that we know of to be important here in Yorktown. For instance, one thing that I'll point out to you, and you can go through at your leisure, is in the body of the law, there is a paragraph that in the model law said that if you're in a flood zone, you need to get a flood permit and comply with all that flood stuff. We are proposing that for a tier 2 battery storage installation, that's the big one, that will provide a lot of power and will be in kind of a tractor trailer type encasing, will not be allowed in flood zones. The tier ones, if they are serving a home, because a home certainly can be in a flood zone, provided that it gets a flood permit and mitigates the potential flooding. So we didn't want to eliminate that, but certainly a tier two, which is not going to supply additional electricity to a home or any users, is really going to be giving it back to the grid. We didn't feel that, or I should say that we're suggesting that that is not something that you really want to grapple with in a potential flooded area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
After a big flood.
Makes a lot of
Is
sense.
that because of liability?
Well, I think it's liability, of course, but also how, if there is a flood and it is surrounded by water and that could begin to have it fail. And if you actually have a fire or some type of failure, how do your emergency services handle that? So if it's in the middle of water, I don't think that necessarily you may want to see it at all in those types of areas.
Frankly, it just seems common sense to me to remove it from a floodplain.
Yes.
I agree.
So, another couple of things that we did, we, in the second draft model law, it suggested that if there is vegetation within 10 feet of an installation, that it should be cut back. I thought that is a little too close, so I suggested 20 feet. Certainly, if you have an issue with a tier 2 battery system, I don't think you want to have too much vegetation within 10 feet of it where your emergency responders cannot really get to it with any clearance. So those are the kinds of things that are in there. There's a lot of verbiage that changed, but I think other than the collapsing from 3 tiers to 2, I think much of the body and what we were doing is similar to what you saw before. So.
And John, just a couple of points, if you don't mind. There's a few points I had for you. Just to make sure everyone's clear at home, the approving authority under this legislation would be the planning board, correct?
That's what's in the proposal now. Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then under lighting, we talked about the language states it's required for shall be reasonably shielded and downcast.
Yes.
Right.
More specific language to maximize shielding and downcast, or is your intent to leave that up to the planning board and have the planning board determine what's reasonable versus maximum? What's your thoughts there?
In this law, I think it can remain flexible, which makes some sense. I don't know that we will be experiencing large lighting installations for these, but nevertheless, this will have to comply with our Chapter 200, which is our lighting chapter,
right?
Which does require shielding. So I think that we're covered by it anyway, but certainly some flexibility in this regard, I think is well-founded.
And then,
I agree. And I think we should allow the planning board to be flexible, because depending on where the site is, they apply the law to that site.
Correct. So for instance, if it is very well screened and not visible from other areas, you can maybe achieve the lighting level by not having it fully screened. And even though you do that, it may not be, have a negative impact to the surrounding properties. That's a possibility in situations like this.
That makes sense.
Can I ask one question? The batteries at the storage center at Staples, would they have fallen into what category?
They would have fallen into tier 2, the big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we still had a 3-tiered system, they'd actually would have been the 3rd tier, correct?
Correct. Yes.
That's your maximum. I call it size or capacity. That's recognized under the law.
Right.
That's the 600 kilowatts is the minimum threshold that gets you into the makes you a big boy, so to speak.
Right.
In terms of battery storage, yes.
John, can you talk quickly about? There was just a few other things that I was going through. I mean, we addressed noise. We're saying that on average, the noise for 1 hour average can't exceed 60 dBAs. I looked that up because I don't know what 60 dBAs relates to, and that's basically a normal conversation level. How do we determine, or how do we measure that?
The manufacturer typically will have that information and will have specification and cut sheets and test data on that. You can also measure it. The thing to remember is that the 60 dBAs, if it's an average conversation, what's pertinent is how far away from the unit you experience that noise level. So we'll have to hone in installation by installation on that.
Yeah.
Because most of your generators are about 68 decibels that run your houses and so forth at power failures. They're between 60 and 70 decibels. So just to get an idea, it's a lawnmower running.
The other question I had for you, and that's great. I mean, I just think it's important to put into perspective, right? So because you read 60 dBAs, you have no idea what you can relate it to, unless you look it up. So the other questions I have for you, John, height. We talk in the special use permit section. We talk about height for tier 2 battery energy storage systems shall not exceed 20 feet. How are we measuring height? Is it the total, from the ground level up? What happens if you're saying it's 20 feet? Can you bury half and still have half? How do you determine that?
Yeah. In the code, from the code perspective, it's measured from the average grade around the installation. Mm-hmm. So in terms of a building, you can have varying grade across, in particular, larger buildings, or a residence or another type of building that's set into a hillside. Mm-hmm. That would change where you begin the measurement from. In these, I don't think you'll see too much of that. They're going to have to remain fairly level. If there is a number of pads with a number of trailers, let's say, they may set down a slope, but I think you would measure those individually. So I think in this situation, you won't have too much of a weighted average grade around it that would change to a great degree what the 20 feet will be. So that 20 feet will be measured from wherever that average grade is to the top of the major part of the structure. There may be some, things that rise above that you don't count and are obviously should not be counted, such like a conduit pipe that is bringing in or bringing out some of the wires that would connect it to the grid or something like that. But the superstructure itself will be, in most of these cases, will be flat roofs, and you'll measure to that basic superstructure.
Okay, John, I didn't get a copy of what you're talking about, but I do have a question.
Okay.
And I'd like you to send me a copy tomorrow.
Sure.
Do you distinguish between which zoning districts they can go in? Or can they go in all zoning districts?
Right now, as it's written, they can go in all zoning districts. One thing that they do have is that there is, in this draft, and the last draft that you had as well, there is a 30,000 square foot minimum lot size. So if you are in R120 zone, which has a 20,000 minimum, in order to do battery storage, you'll have to find a piece of property that's 3/4 of an acre or 30,000 square feet, not 20,000. Now you guys can think about that and make it larger, which the point is that you want to have enough of a piece of property to be able to effectively manage the impacts, i.e. the screening and so on and so forth. Maybe 40,000 square feet is the right number. I'm proposing right now 30,000 square feet. I thought that sticking with the 20,000, in particular, where you have a lot of neighborhoods in the half-acre zone that are
that was going to be my question.
Right. I think it makes sense that if you have a double lot and someone subdivides it and they have 20,000 square feet, maybe that's not the best place to have one of these larger battery storage units, and you probably would have trouble mitigating or effectively mitigating some of the impacts, including the noise, if it is in fact 60 decibels, which I don't think it is, and also whether or not you can effectively screen it. So a little bit more land area will give you more flexibility in achieving that.
But won't the planning board also have purview over the site plan when looking at a
Yes.
proposal like that?
Correct. And so what could possibly happen is, although a battery storage company can propose an installation on a 30,000 square foot lot, the planning board would evaluate whether or not they can achieve the screening properly and be far enough away from a neighbor or another property owner to effectively deal with the noise. They may determine that it just doesn't work on that property. You don't have the
your site visits would have to come in.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, and it would depend on the lay of the land, what's there, whether or not they can use all of the land. Some of those 20,000 square foot lots could be encumbered by wetlands and or floodplains. So you have to look at it lot by lot.
Okay.
I just think, we've gone through this this piece of legislation. John, I know you've been working on it for quite some time. I think that we've covered a lot of the concerns that were raised originally. I think modified this in conjunction with the state's model ordinance, as well as enhancing it on our own. From my standpoint, this is the direction that the state's going in, and I see it as, the town really needs to make a decision whether we're going to be, part of that conversation or we're going to let that conversation go past us.
I kind of like that they looked at something they did in July and felt that they needed to change it. Obviously, there were issues there, and I'm very happy they did. And what are your plans for this? To refer it out?
Well, I think we can refer it out. Yep. John, I believe we can refer it out. There's other agencies who may not have gotten the previous version, if my memory serves me correctly.
I agree.
So I think we can refer it out. And then, if the board is comfortable with the changes, we can have a conversation about a public hearing and start gathering more public comment to see, if we're heading in the right direction on this thing.
I agree.
But the only thing I don't really like about the whole thing is that it can be put in residential areas. I think this is something that we really have to consider, because it's a business going into a residential area, if I'm not mistaken, right, John?
Yeah, but John, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have to have specific specifications to be able to hook up to the grid. It's not like you can just plop it in any residential neighborhood you want. Also, the law is dictating certain parameters, such as the 30,000 square foot lots and so on and so forth. But you also have to be within a certain proximity to the grid, to high power tension lines.
Yeah.
Right, John?
Yeah, right. I knew. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also just want to remind everybody that this is part of the utility infrastructure, or will be part of the utility infrastructure in the town and other towns and Westchester as a whole. So, for instance, Con Ed and NYSEG are both commercial concerns, for-profit organizations, and all of their infrastructure, including other communication facilities such as cell towers, telephone exchange buildings, et cetera, are allowed in residential zones. The reason being is that they need to service, from a close proximity, all areas, not just commercial areas. So if they're only limited to, for instance, to commercial areas, most of the power that they will generate and give back into the grid will be used in close proximity to where it is.
Right.
So that's why if you do have them mixed around, it will be beneficial to more of the citizens of Yorktown. The electricity doesn't flow up to Albany or anything. It's used by the people that are closest to them. It's like water. It finds the least path of resistance. So that's something to keep in mind, I think, when evaluating.
And when the state's talking about resiliency, when they're talking about cleaner energy, when they're talking about more affordable energy, these energy storage products and these energy storage initiatives, those are the things that they are really starting to hone in on. I mean, I think right now, NYSERDA, it's 1,500 megs by 2025 just on energy storage alone. So they're setting some pretty lofty goals. They're investing some pretty significant dollars, which is one of the reasons they were, I think by investing those dollars, they're seeing ways that they can make it better and enhance it and improve it, to Alice's point, which is why, to Councilman Roker's point, which is why you saw that change in their model ordinance from July. But this is the direction that the state's going in. And I just think that it's an opportunity for the town.
I see what John was saying also before. With it has to be close to proximity where it'll feed back and assist that particular neighborhood or neighborhoods. So that kind of clears that up for me.
And actually, that's pretty good in the event there's like a brownout or a blackout, that neighborhood could get that neighborhood closest to that storage center would get power quickly.
Right.
Correct.
Am I right, John?
Yes.
That's part of the resiliency, benefits of
Okay.
energy storage.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And who will control where the power will go in terms of emergency? If it's a neighborhood towns, if they are in a need, are we going to give them first or our own town?
Well, I think New York State probably is the one that's in control of that.
Yeah,
because they are the one put some infrastructure to distribute the power, either going for storage or giving back to the user.
Well, yeah, I think the way it works is you have to think of it that it's as you were injecting additional water into a water pipe system.
Right.
And where the valves are open is where that water is going to go. So if you have some users in the area that have all their air conditioners on, let's say, and they're the ones that are putting the strain in that area on the system, and you are about to have a brownout, that energy will go up into the grid and find its way and push electrons into where that demand is. So I don't know that you can actually control it, but in certain areas in which it's located, it will minimize, brownouts and over demand, or will meet demand when demand gets high in certain times.
Again, it goes back to resiliency. And
exactly.
Yeah, I think this is the only way. A lot of people talk about getting a new grid. I think that won't happen in our lifetime. I think things like this, the incremental changes, will make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is from NYSERDA, right? So they're saying from energy storage, nearly $2 billion in gross lifetime benefits to New York's utility customers, avoiding more than 1 million tons of CO2 emissions. I mean,
I would agree with that.
You're adding resiliency to the electric system by reducing the impact of outages. I mean, that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's what this technology allows us to accomplish. We're trying to do it in a way that protects obviously our to Councilman Diana's point, 100%. We want to protect our neighborhoods and our communities and
Absolutely.
trying to find that balance. But I think in a large part, this does that.
I do. I agree too.
So, okay. So we're going to refer it out to all agencies to get some feedback from there. And then again, I leave this for the town board. How do we feel about taking that extra step and setting a public hearing? Adam, what are our constraints on public?
Great beginning.
I wouldn't set a public hearing until June because you got to give it a month out.
Which is fine.
Okay.
I know that there was a new executive order from the governor. I just didn't know if there are any constraints under what that new executive order was.
Under the executive order, all public hearings are postponed until June unless they're conducted via telephone or video conference. So you could conduct one sooner, but the fact that it's being referred out, I mean, as a practical matter, I think it probably makes sense to just wait and see how that process plays out. And then once the board's comfortable, we can set it down.
So, Diana, do you want to look at a calendar and look at the first board meeting of June, or do you want to wait?
I think we should wait. We have several that we have to also that were postponed in March. So I think we should sit down and go over all of them before we set another public hearing.
Okay. Councilman Lack.
Look, I think we should definitely push it out for comment. I wouldn't be adverse to putting it for public hearing, but had the same concern Diana just brought up of what is our backlog of public.
Yeah, we do have a backlog.
We do have a backlog, and if need be, we can. I mean, I'm not opposed for calling a special meeting for specifically public hearings if the board's amenable to that. This way, we can get things back on track.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think that might be a pretty good idea, Matt, to actually have maybe one extra meeting, just so we can maybe take care of 3-4 public hearings and get them behind us.
Agreed.
I agree.
Adam, any issues?
Oh,
No, I think that makes sense, because particularly considering, look, we have a queue of things, and also this is going to be referred out. Let's see what the comments are, if any. You guys can take that under consideration, and then when it's appropriate, the public hearing can be set, and we'll have a better sense of that schedule at that point.
I would be okay with doing the extra meeting, trying to clear, and I'm not sure we can clear the backlog in one meeting. I would be in favor of extra meeting, clearing the public hearings that we haven't done, and then setting this sometime in June.
I'm fine with that as well. So, so Diana, we'll work with you to set a special meeting for sometime in May to try to clear the backlog of public hearings. And in the meantime, we'll look to June to schedule the public hearing for battery storage legislation. Is everyone in agreement?
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Do we need a motion for this?
Yep. Motion.
Second?
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? Good. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tegeter. We appreciate your time. You have a good night. I think are you muted? There you go.
Am I able to stick in and look at the other agenda items?
You're always about.
Stay with us.
If you have room for me.
We have more than enough room.
I did send you a memo for smoking from the planning board, so. It
Yeah,
was
I have that.
laid in today, but.
I got it.
I don't think that, John, did you send it to me? I don't think I saw it.
I don't think I saw that one either.
I sent it to Diana.
I didn't see anything for John. I got from Jenna.
I sent it late today. I apologize, but I do have it.
So why don't we go right into the next one is smoking anyway. So yeah, I'm sorry, John, I did not get the memo. So as a reminder for everyone at home, it was brought to our attention that the smoking law in the town of Yorktown was, we'll call it obsolete. It didn't recognize vaping. It didn't recognize e-cigs and allowed employees to smoke in the kitchen in town hall. So needless to say, that is not acceptable. So we do have a proposed local law amending Chapter 90. This is something that Adam Rodriguez was quarterbacking for us. You want to walk through that, Mr. Rodriguez?
Sure, just let me pull it up.
Pretty clear.
It's very clear, to be honest. I mean, it identifies electronic cigarettes, e-cigarettes, smoking, vaping.
And
vaping. Yep, absolutely. And the following town-owned areas, it declared smoke and vape-free zones for the following town-owned areas in any area owned by the town of Yorktown located within 75 feet thereof, and they are hereby designated as smoke and vape-free zones. These are town-owned buildings, picnic areas, sport areas, and fields, including but not limited to tennis facilities, tracks, volleyball facilities, baseball fields and basketball courts, pool facilities, playgrounds, and pavilions. Smoking and vaping are strictly prohibited in any smoke and vape-free zone within the town of Yorktown. Mr. Rodriguez, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, effectively, you can't smoke within, as you said, you can't smoke within 75 feet of any town-owned building, and any of these sort of active recreation places, but it wouldn't cover smoking, in other areas.
John, can you explain to us what the memo was from the planning board, just so we're aware of it?
Sure. Generally, they support the updating of the law and the no smoking. Mm-hmm. And they have really just 3 items that they came up with that they saw. The first one is in section 90-2, which is definitions.
Yep.
Under the definition of smoking, it was suggested that you replace the phrase lighted tobacco with ignited tobacco. The second one was that they didn't understand. They didn't seem that it was clear that when you talk about a town-owned building, whether or not it meant just the building itself or the property on which it was. It sounds as though you're saying 75 feet from the building. That's what it sounds like. I think that's what you mean. But they thought maybe that should bear some clarifying language to make sure there's no ambiguity. And then the last one was that they suggested that you do designate the smoking areas at the town-owned facilities, somewhere that I guess it's outside of the building. Now, maybe that has to be 75 feet away.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. Say that again.
They suggested establishing designated smoking areas at the town-owned buildings, obviously outside of them.
Yeah, like in LAX, it's all the way in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are just the 3 really minor suggestions.
Why ignited rather than lighted?
Well, the planning board lawyer felt that using the lighted word was better served by using ignited, meaning actually on fire. So,
wait till I talk to my colleague.
Okay. Listen, nobody blinked an eye when he said it. So.
Okay.
And then and then Adam, your thoughts on can we get a better on regarding town-owned buildings? Can we better define that? You're on mute. Still on mute. Hit your.
You're muted.
I was hitting it, but I minimized the screen. So now I know that if I minimize the screen,
all things we're learning together here. It's like
So I don't think it's actually ambiguous on that point, but I'm happy to look at it and clarify.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really a minor thing that I just hit a couple of people that they didn't understand it immediately. So.
And then in regards to designating the smoking areas, I just wonder if that needs to be stated in designating smoking areas at town facilities, if that needs to be stated within law, or if that could just be a policy of the town. So
no.
Well, that would require someone to go to every building and walk out 75 feet. I'm not sure that that's required.
If you can't,
I'm not married to it. I mean, I'm just trying to find a solution.
With the law as written, you could not designate, after the law is passed, you couldn't designate anything within 75 feet of any town-owned building to be a smoking area.
Right.
So if it's going to be within the 75 feet.
No, it's not. It's not. So then I think, I don't think then we need to designate smoking areas because we're already dictating.
I agree with you.
Right, but you could say that it's 75 feet except for designated areas, and then you designate them, by policy.
Councilman Lackman,
if somebody's smoking in the vehicle, at the entrance to the building, so how do you tell them that? You can say, I'm on my vehicle, I can do whatever I want.
No, they can't.
People are people, and they're going to do what they want to do sometimes. And I don't think, I think 99% of the people adhere to the law. 1%.
That's good.
I think it's something that we've said earlier, especially with the New York on pause, and we said this with Chief Noble. It's not necessarily about enforcement, but a mindset, right? And so
I agree with you.
What we're trying to do is really frame an argument or frame a conversation geared towards reducing people, from smoking because it's bad for your health. I mean, that's basically what we're saying.
Well, we had the lady at the YCC who was vaping in the building, in the bathroom.
Yeah,
Smoking in the boys' room.
The things we're trying to So I'm fine. I'm fine with ignited. I don't think we need to designate areas. I think they're dictated by the 75-foot parameter.
I do too.
So I would like this be referred. We referred this out already, did we not?
No.
I don't believe we did.
Planning got it as a referral.
They did.
Planning board.
John wouldn't have had it, right?
Yeah.
We did send them out to planning and conservation early beforehand. So.
Okay. So
I think everyone should get them, being that every building is going to be in the mix. Don't you think?
I'm fine with a full referral, and I think we should tack with the same procedure as we did with battery storage. So full referral with a public hearing eye towards June.
I agree. Okay.
Albany has a law that it's 50 feet, if I'm not mistaken, and Ed and I had looked into this at one time. 50 feet from an entryway was as close as you could get to smoke, which I thought was a pretty good idea, because who wants to walk through a bunch of people smoking to go into a restaurant and have a meal, that type of thing, or who wants to walk through a bunch of people smoking to go wherever to get into a building. So that may be something we want to include in that, if it isn't already, John.
I'm curious about enforcement, Adam. I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I mean, how do you enforce, especially on private property, so to say?
Well, just to Councilman Diana's point, I mean, the way the law is written right now, your suggestion would be different than the way the law is written right now. So that would have to be a change. In terms of on private property, the town can regulate conduct on private property.
Yeah, we can't tell anybody what to do with their property.
Right. Let me rephrase that. It was a model I was giving you, so to speak. But for town buildings to make it 50 feet from any entry point to a town building is where you would have to.
And this one's 75, so it's more. It's actually greater.
Correct. So I mean, I know it works in Albany into their buildings, whether it's a restaurant or an office building or whatever the case might be.
But just to be clear, this law wouldn't regulate conduct on private property. So if the 75 feet, let's say a town hall, for example, if 75 feet were to put you across the street, on Michael Grace's property, the law doesn't say that. The law says within 75 feet on town property. So it would stop if for example, at the Capolini Center, the setback from, some private property is only 40 feet. It would stop at the 40 feet mark.
Okay.
This was referred out. This is one of those public hearings which was postponed. So we can basically discuss setting the public hearing.
Thank you, Diana.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a suggestion. I know I was just referring to the one that I had seen up in Albany, where they actually have it for all their restaurants, bars, buildings, hospital entrances, et cetera,
I have seen it too, Tommy.
Yeah, where they stay, and it was 50 feet. I mean, ours is 75 feet, but of course, 75 puts you on the WO line in front of Town Hall. That's a little bit of a stretch, so to speak. But just to have it so that it's universal for our buildings. That's all I was referring to. It was just do we want it? 75 feet's a lot of feet. The frontage on most houses is between 75 and 100 feet. So
I'm fine with the 50 if you want to cut it down to 50. I don't really have a preference between 50 or 75.
Yeah, I mean
my preference is that people can't legally smoke in the kitchen in town hall.
That I have a problem with. I like smoking in the kitchen or smoking in the boys' room.
And just so you know, in Westchester County, the Board of Health does administer that borderline to restaurants. So a restaurant can actually get fined, especially by the kitchen door, if there are cigarette butts outside the kitchen door. It happened to a few restaurants in town that I've worked with. So it's definitely there, and definitely something that they will look at. I think they use a 50-foot for the Board of Health in Westchester.
Then let's just go with the 50-foot then, and
I'm
just
good with that.
distant. Okay. Any objections?
No.
I'm good with it.
All right, Adam. So Diana. So we're gonna go 50. We're gonna use a special meeting because this is one of the ones that are in the queue. So we'll use a special meeting and schedule the public hearing for this law amending Chapter 90, and we'll get that on the books.
And I'll make the changes that have been discussed and recirculate.
Perfect. All right. Do we need a motion?
Motion.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No. All right. Moving right along. Do we have Ken Rundle? We're getting Kenny Rundle on the phone. He's going to be jumping in.
Okay.
And this is going back to
Commercial water meters.
yeah, this is regarding commercial water meters. This is there's Kenny.
Hello.
How are you doing, my friend?
Very good, sir. How are you?
You're
Good
doing
evening.
good. How's your family? Everyone's healthy?
Everybody's safe.
Good. That's what matters.
All right, Kenny.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey,
how you
Ken.
doing?
Hey, man.
Ken,
So you want to change the law in the book?
That's correct. I've approached the board. As we know, we were trying to get this commercial meter program testing kicked off. There was some problems, which I felt that were reflected in the town code. So I've been working with Mr. Rodriguez, and I think we have a change to the town code that all the board members should have. And I think that this will work for what we needed to do.
Okay, I didn't get a copy of this. So kind of explain it, please.
Sure. So basically, the original town code, it said that you had to have your water meter tested, commercial water meter tested every 3 years.
3 years, right?
Right. So there was no really penalty for that. The only thing that they did have in the town code was that the water department could come in and test that water meter, that we would do the testing and everything and just kind of be the middleman to get that played out. That's really not efficient for our staff. We're really not, we're not in that business.
Right.
So we had to get a little bit of bite because if the board remembers, last time I was in speaking about the commercial water meters, they make up about 30% of our revenue. And, that's a big chunk and that they need to be accurate. And I know that they're not accurate. So again, working with Mr. Rodriguez, we went through the town code. We put in some penalties. It's $250 a day if you don't comply, not to exceed $5,000 in a 3-year period.
I believe that's per meter, right, Kenny?
That's per meter, yes.
$250 per meter per day, not to exceed $5,000. Let me ask you a quick question, if I can just jump in. How
Sure.
much does it cost? How much does it cost a property owner to perform the test?
Okay, so there's different companies, and obviously they would have different price structures. But I know, for an example, the water district just had a 4-inch water meter tested because when we buy water from Newcastle, I think we paid, I think it was $1,400 or $1,700. It was $1,600, and that was for a 4-inch meter.
But the point being here, though, is that the fine, it costs them less to go get it tested to make sure it's calibrated correctly than it does to pay the fine. That's what we're trying
Correct.
to do.
Right, exactly. And right. The one thing that I'd like to stress to the board and to the property owners of the commercial water meters, if you remember when we had census water meters into the last board meeting that we were at, they were saying, the manufacturer of the water meter was saying, if that meter was 20 years old, you can no longer get parts for that meter.
Right.
So I'd hate to see somebody have a tester come out, pay them $1,500 or $1,400 or whatever that would be. Then the meter fails, parts not available. Now they have to go purchase a new water meter. They'd be better off, if it's 20 years old, just going to replace the meter and be done with it.
That was going to be my next question, Kenny. What would it cost to replace a 12-inch meter? I'm sorry, a 4-inch meter, just because that's what you had mentioned.
So to purchase a 4-inch meter, the water district would pay about $3,300.
Okay, I was just seeing what the difference be to repair, replace,
Right.
So about twice the price of the test, but less than the fine still.
Right, and then again,
it's worth them doing the testing.
Right, and
is
then again,
it possible to put in the code that once the water meter reaches 20 years old, you have to get a new one?
I mean,
or is that unreasonable?
Well, I don't think it's unreasonable. I'm comfortable working with the verbiage that Mr. Rodriguez and myself came up with, and subject to change. But I think if there's a meter that's 20 years old and it's still accurate, I don't see that happening. But if that case is, I'd hate to see the property owner go through the expense of purchasing a new meter.
And also, if you're doing a test every 3 years, we're actually enforcing the 3-year calibration, you're gonna catch whether or not you have a faulty meter.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So again, that makes up about 30% of our revenue, and the meters need to be accurate because basically other people in the water district are subsidizing or could potentially be subsidizing commercial users rather.
Kenny, can I ask you, when it comes to assuming that we pass this law and it becomes active, what's your plan in regards to implementation and enforcement? Is there?
Oh, that's so funny. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
I think you have to make people aware.
Right. I mean, so what is do you have a plan yet? Are you going to be notifying commercial property owners about, stating that the law has been updated, stating the following, and then my other thought is considering the times that we're in and the financial stress that people are under, if it makes sense to give them some lead time before you start necessarily finding them on a daily basis. Does that make sense? Maybe giving them the summer.
Yeah, I agree with you absolutely, and I given these times, I think it does make sense. What we envision is just sending out letters to, I think it's approximately 300 parcels for the commercial users, right? Sending them out a letter saying, hey, we're not sure if you're aware of it or not, but the town has this policy in place. You have to have your meters tested and, give them some time because as the supervisor just said, these are tough times that we're going through and a lot of commercial places are having very tough times. We don't want to make it any tougher on them, but they also, we do need their water meters to be accurate and comply with the town code.
How long has it been,
Kenny,
since they've tested meters since many of these 30% have tested the meters.
Kenny, I want to ask you another question. Whenever we set the public hearing date, I think it's important to let these large companies know that there's a public hearing, and if they have something they want to say, we would like to hear it. Because I don't think generally everybody looks at our public notices. And I think this is, you're doing something that you haven't done before. So at least I think if you could send out a copy of the public notice about the public hearing, that would be good.
Alice, I agree. Councilwoman Roker, I agree. I think that's a wise decision. Kenny, if you can make sure that happens, I think that'd be smart. But real quick, can we just go back to Councilman Diana's question?
Kenny, did you hear that question?
I'm sorry. No, I didn't, sir.
What are the number of meters that have not been tested regularly of the 30 of the number of commercial accounts that we have out there?
I understand it that none of the commercial water meters have been tested since my start with the water district 33 years ago.
So we haven't tested commercial meters in 33 years?
That's correct.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Okay, can I make some comment now? The conservation of the water is also important. That if you use more, you pay more. So if they have a meter, it tells you exactly how much they are using it. They'll think it. Maybe they try to use it less. And this is to be included because the water uses gets bigger. You're gonna have to buy a bigger tank, bigger pipes, and we have to make them aware to everybody, not only the homeowners, only the commercial people too, because they have to make sure that they also conserve the water. I have seen some people, they hook it up directly. You want me to show you the picture? I have it, I'll share it with you, So this kind of thing will be really good to be done, Kenny. It's better late than never.
I agree.
It's 33 years late, apparently. So we really got to get this going here. Especially for the water district. Kenny, let me just ask you one last question. One of the additions that I saw of the legislation also had the water department, giving the water department the authority to have the meters tested, repaired, replaced, and retested, and then having the water department bill back the property owner for the costs of the testing, the repairs, replace all the procedures. Is there a reason that is there a reason we don't want to do that if they don't comply, or is it just you want to just focus on the enforcement of the fine?
So there is a reason why that was deleted for a couple of reasons, right? For the staffing at the water district. We really don't want to be in a position where we're trying to gather meter companies to come in, go out to the location, right? Because if the property owner is not having the meter tested, there's probably a pretty good chance that they're not going to let us in with a company to change the water meter. I just, in my opinion, I don't think we should be going down that road and in that business. I think we need to focus on our infrastructure and just kind of focus on what the town code is and what the town law is, and make sure that everybody's paying their fair share through their water usage.
And they own their own meters, right, Kenny?
That's correct.
Yeah. So let's leave the onus where of who owns the meters and not get involved in it. Like you said.
I think we can move forward with it as it stands, and then if we feel that we need to go to that next level, then we can have a conversation about that. But the fact that you're telling me they haven't been tested in 3 decades, clearly it's an issue that we have to rectify immediately. So we're gonna have to. Do we want to refer this out? If you can, Diana, could you remind me if we referred it out already? You're on mute.
No, it has not been referred out. We only got it this afternoon.
Okay, so then why don't we refer it out to all agencies? I'm going to make a motion, refer it out to all agencies and plan on a June public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, can I get a copy of that, please?
Yes.
Second.
So Councilman Diana made the motion, seconded by Councilman Patel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 3 years.
Can I ask a small question to Kenny?
Yes, sir.
Is there any way, just for experimental purpose, we do the oldest building or something, just little taste from our own that, listen, how much is real, meter is reading and electronically monitor meeting. This is just, and put it in a newspaper, they look at this is really the test, and, this might be really good example to tell, put in a big article in a newspaper, they listen. This is the way we can save the water and save the money.
Right. So one way we'd be able to do that, let's just say 123 Main Street has a commercial water meter, and we know that it's 25 or 30 years old, right? They install a new meter. We can just track it through the water bills, through the usage, right? So if they were using 5,000 gallons a month and now they're using 25,000 gallons a month, you can tell right there how much water was being, we weren't being reimbursed for that water.
Yeah, something like one taste, we should do it like that, and we'll just educate the people. They listen, this is your money and everybody's water,
I think you're right, Vishnu. I don't think people understand that Yorktown is under permanent water restrictions.
Alice, do you remember about 20 years ago, Yorktown is running out of water in the front page of the North County News or something? I have to find out that. I think I have somewhere in my collections,
Right.
So this 30 years later, 25 years later,
Well, at least this is a good way for Kenny to kind of talk about water and the meters at the public hearing.
Yep. Listen, we have a lot of work to do, I think, with the water district. We had a great presentation before we unfortunately had to break. I think there's a lot of momentum that we can gain.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
I agree.
So let's fix a 33-year-old problem. And
I
want me to tell you where? No, I'm not even going to say where I was 33 years ago. All right.
I didn't want to ask. Matt, how old are you?
All right, Ken, thanks, buddy. Stay well. Hey, and tell your whole staff they're doing an absolutely fantastic job. I was with them on a couple of water main breaks. They continue to work, and tell them we appreciate it. They're doing a heck of a job, absolutely heck of a job considering the circumstances. So on behalf of the whole town board, please thank them for us.
Okay, and we also are, I'm going to speak for my whole staff now, and we thank you for your support through these troubling times. It's nice when people can be safe, given the tools that we have, the masks and the gloves, and it really, really means a lot to the employees that they know that their town government's looking out for them.
100%. Absolutely.
Kenny, we're going to recognize them once we get kind of back to normal, because we think that people don't understand. There are people still performing their jobs out there. You guys work in the winter, the summer, and certainly through this whole COVID mess. There's no way we can thank you enough. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Kenny, thank you. We're going to go.
Okay.
We're going to move over to our next agenda item. And so this is that I put on, as many folks know, littering has become it's always been an issue. And it's frankly, it's a little strange talking about littering without Dan Strauss in the audience in front of me, but I'm sure he's appreciating what we're trying to accomplish here. Littering, it's gotten way too much. I mean, it was always an issue, and it's grown exponentially because of the New York on Pause. We've seen how many Councilman Diana, you've taken how many pictures of those disgusting gloves and face masks in the Shrub Oak parking lot? It's absurd.
Yeah, oh my God, I went on a rant on that. That was so ridiculous. People take them off, they throw them on the ground. Take them home and dispose of them properly. There was a receptacle right where the gloves were thrown. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I get very angry when I see people do that. I mean, truly angry.
Yeah. Yeah, same.
It's very dangerous and a lack of consideration. We're wearing the gloves to protect ourselves, and then we say, "Oh, well, there's something on it. Let me get rid of them and throw it on the ground for someone else to get infected."
That's disgusting.
Come on.
It's medical waste, and so for the folks at home who don't know, I did sign an emergency order doubling the fine. So it's $1,000 if you litter, and quite frankly, I'm so sick of it. I don't think it should just be an emergency order. I do think that we should enhance the fine associated with littering, and I've just had it. So I wanted to talk to the board about proposing making the doubling of the fine, the current fine of $1,000, the law for the town of Yorktown for littering, and propose
I
it.
agree.
So moved.
I think
Let
we
it
should
go.
put that
I
in
agree.
law. Adam, this is something for you to put in law. But, if people are so hesitant to use a garbage can, let's give them a reason to want to use it.
Listen, Adam, what are your issues? I know you raised your finger. I think you might have some issues on this, but I'd like to talk them through.
I don't have any real legal issues. I just have a question. There's two different fines set forth in the code.
Right.
There's one for a first offense, which is $500 and or up to 15 days in jail. And then there's one for a repeat offense. Basically, if you're convicted twice in the same year, it's $1,000 a day and or up to 30 days in jail. The question I have is,
we're doubling both.
Original fine. It doubles the original punishment, and I think it should double the original punishment. So if the original punishment
double
is
both,
or 15 days in jail, it should be $2,000 or 30 days in jail.
Yeah.
We've had it. I mean, we've been working with our building department and our code enforcement, trying to get more litter cameras. One person on a litter camera pays for 10 more litter cameras. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just become just simply egregious, the level of conduct by some people. And we live in an absolutely beautiful community. We live in an absolutely beautiful town. We have to maintain that. And if it means for us to enhance the law and levy frankly a very hefty fine to teach people that you can't litter, so be it. So be it. It's just
what's maddening is for those of us who live on a corner. You get up in the morning and you see the stuff on your lawn.
Yeah.
It just really it's really upsetting, and I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Really, what really happens is a leftover food left in a liquid form or solid form. So what happens? The bacteria, and you don't know what kind of bacteria comes out of there. What they do is go in a stream.
Right. Then it gets in the waterways. It gets in the waterways, and it jams up our waterways, pollutes the waterways. It's a whole problem. I mean, so anyway,
not only
I wanted to bring the board
drainage. The drainage are clogged with the plastic, the little bottle and cups and like that. So what happens, instead of going water in a stormwater drainage, it goes to the next neighbor and wash away everything. So these are really very serious problems. Let me just tell you what happened to me about 2 weeks ago. I was just, Loader and my street in a corner. Yep. I found out 2 1-gallon bottle. It has some red wine, and I cannot lift up these 2 bottles in my hand. I had something, the garbage bag, So I just dropped it and I came back again. I cannot believe that 1-gallon container, 2 bottle, right over there, just in the corner. I cannot believe it like this,
Yeah.
2 gallon.
I have been put on the law when I have a second. Adam, and this is, I guess, a question for you. With the Bail Reform Act and the fact that they are not really prosecuting or jailing people for quality of life crimes right now, perhaps we could look at something similar to what they do in the youth courts with community service instead of jail time.
Oh, that's probably even better.
And let them go
Have
pick
them
up
out
the
there
garbage.
picking up litter.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Councilman. So Adam, if we can work on that, but I think it's something that I think the board is wholly passionate about, is something that we need to address. And so if that's something that you and I can continue to work on, we can move that forward at the next we'll have a draft ready for the next work session board meeting, and then we can refer it out and set a public hearing and get it done.
Okay.
And just to remind everybody too, while our code enforcement officers are out there checking for littering rather, and the people that are throwing the stuff around, they're also checking our fire zones in the shopping centers. So
right.
If you get a fire zone ticket, you've been warned.
That's another pet peeve of mine.
I mean, it is, but one thing at a time. But yes, our code enforcement and our fire inspectors have been out. They have been cracking down on.
Yes.
Councilman Diane, you've been talking about this for I think over a year now, about the parking and fire lanes. So that is happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and again, thanks to our staff. But I think the littering, we really have to clamp down on this and put an end to it. Unfortunately, the Battle of Yorktown's been, we're saying, significantly postponed. Hopefully not completely canceled because it's such a great event. But we're going to have to figure out ways to beautify the community, but we have to also make sure that people understand that littering is just an absolutely egregious crime in this town and in our eyes. So we'll move that forward. I think we have our next agenda item as our last one, and that's the Greenway grant application. Susan Siegel, who is going to be presenting to the board. This is regards to the pedestrian light for the Mohansick Trail. Susan? Diana, do we have her on?
She shows in. Susan, are you there?
Am I on the meeting now?
Yep, we got you.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot. Okay, I'm just hear my voice.
Yep. So Susan, you're on. So if you could just brief the board as to the parameters of the grant and what you in the Trail Town is trying to accomplish, that would be fantastic.
Okay, well, everybody knows the Mohansick Trailway is becoming increasingly popular, as all of our trails are in Yorktown, but especially I sent everyone an email today. Somebody has been on the trail and has seen the increase in volume. Obviously, crossing at 118 and Downing is a problem. I spoke to the DOT because it's a state road about getting permission for crosswalks, which I was thinking of. And they were the ones that suggested these it's called RRFBs, Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon Lights. It's a pedestrian activated system. You press a button like what we have at in other parts of Yorktown, and then a light would flash. It would be powered by solar batteries, and it would basically caution the cars to slow down. It's not a traffic light, but it's a cautionary light, and you would see it both coming north and south on 118. The cost, I've checked with the vendor who is on the DOT's approved list already, and the system that seems to be appropriate for this intersection would be approximately $7,200. There is a grant. I have checked with the Hudson Valley Greenway, the people who gave us 2 grants, one to the town and one to the Yorktown Trail Town Committee to construct the trailway. And these lights would qualify as a construction grant related to the Mohansick Trailway. It's a 50% match, okay? So if we put in a grant for $7,500, the match would be roughly, let's say, $3,500. Yorktown Trail Town doesn't have those kinds of funds, so we would look to the town to provide that cash. Now, I realize that the town is going to be strapped for cash because of the virus situation. So it's with a lot of reluctance and humility that Trail Town is coming to the town board to ask for a potential of spending $3,200 sometime into whether it can be done in 2020 or pushed into 2021, I'm not sure. But we feel this is a safety issue. It's a pedestrian safety issue. And we're hoping that the fund balance, can carry it. So this is what it is. That cost includes the 2 poles on both sides of 118. I've sent you an email, a link to a YouTube video that kind of shows how it works. And that's an all-inclusive price. I've been told that our local highway department would be able to install the system. It shouldn't need any additional, outside vendor support.
Susan,
and that's it.
Susan, just a few questions, and I'm glad I know Councilman Diana's still on, and John Tegeter, I know you're still on. So is this I just want to make sure we're clear. Are we talking about a pedestrian crosswalk which would go from Downing Drive to the trailhead? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, across, let's say from roughly the Burger King side. I mean, we have to get the exact location. The Burger King sidewalk, right by the sidewalk, I can't remember now. I think there's a grass strip. So I've been at that corner so often, but I can't remember if there's a grass strip. There would be a pole there with the light that would have the button. I know I use the button when I cross over at Route 6. It's a standard kind of a button. It has a sign on it and a warning sign and a sign that says push the button below. And then the solar panel is way up on top. And then also up on top are the beams that would flash once this is activated. And the solar battery, the one that would be sized properly, you only draw from the battery when the button is activated.
So,
and
real quick,
that's how it operates.
Councilman Diana, I know that I think this was proposed to the Traffic and Safety Committee at some point. Has there been a conversation, do you know, or what are your thoughts on?
Yes, I spoke
You're talking
with,
1 second, please. We're talking about now, it's not just a light. We're talking about a crosswalk going across really 118.
Can I just
the light is separate. The light is separate from the crosswalk. But I think that if the DOT gives us permission, we have to get DOT permission for this, obviously. That the crosswalk, it would just enhance it. The two would go together.
So,
I think it.
So we need.
Susan, can I jump in here? And John Tegeter, are you still on with us?
Yes, he is.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. One of the things, Susan, that we spoke to DOT about was not only was the traffic in the Roma, near the Roma building as well as the DeVito, but also where across the street where Mr. Falkenberg has his property. And what I think, John, am I correct? What we were exploring was a left-hand turn. Do you want to explain everything that we talked about that we were exploring?
Well, I can explain the portion that I think you're getting to, which is there is a road right of way that goes from Route 202 up near what was the Chase Bank, which is now the Verizon store. Right. And it comes down and then it turns onto the right of way, which was the old railroad bed, which is inhabited by the Mohansick Trail currently. So there would be a turn there and it would form a 4-way intersection with Downing and 118. Right. That is a proposed road that's been proposed for many years. Our discussions that we had when we were looking at Roma and Wyant together, and we pulled in a couple of other property owners, including Mr. Falkenberg that owns the cable
and they agreed.
Division. He agreed, to make some amendments, and the road would provide some benefit and relief from the major intersection that Roma and Wyant are affecting. So that was the discussion.
And that was part of that whole mini master plan that we did about a year or so, a couple of years ago.
That's right.
Correct. Yeah, and actually,
hang on a minute.
I'm sorry. Actually, added to that, and there was a proposal a long time ago, back in 2008 7 and 8 when a bank was proposed for that corner at 118, and there was even talk about the traffic light, and I think a warrant had been done to justify the light. But these are all long-range plans. Even the one that you've talked about connecting with the Roma and the Wyand are very long-range plans. And in the meantime, investing $3,200 for something that's going to be there immediately now for traffic safety, I think is something for the board to consider rather than wait
Councilman Susan,
5-10 years.
Susan, excuse me 1 second. Councilman Diana, you wanted to bring something up?
Yes, although this is a laudable cause, there is no safe haven for people in the center of this roadway where if they can't get across or need to stop to get across, either they're unable to get across or that they're incapacitated in the middle of the road. There's many considerations rather than just a couple of lights that are being put up. That's number one. Number two, I am all for the safety of the pedestrians going across there, but I want to do it properly. I'm not going to, go willy-nilly into this. I want to make sure that it's done right so that the motoring public knows that there are pedestrians there, and we have to protect the public that is going across the road, where if they can't make it because of incapacitation or a car is speeding down there, there's a safe place for them to go. There isn't just putting up a couple of lights that's going to cure the situation here or make it more safe for the people. This is a whole plan that has to be taken into place.
Oh, I was just going to excuse me 1 second, Susan. John, when we went to DOT, did we have a conversation about this? I can't recall.
No, not with the trail.
I think we had a conversation about the bank approval and the entire light. We didn't have a conversation about a pedestrian crossing or the trailway or the safety issues relative to that.
Right.
I also want to add in, if I could very quickly, is that I think permission from the DOT is going to take the form of a highway work permit, which you will probably need to show professional drawings and so on and so forth. It's not an easy task all the time. So I don't think they just give permission by saying, yeah, we endorse that. So there'll be some costs there as well, unless you get somebody to do it pro bono. Secondly, I would suggest, and maybe Susan has looked into this, but if you're going to go for a grant, maybe go for more so you cover the installation cost as well.
Absolutely, John. I think that you're 100% right that this is also a New York State road. This isn't a town road. Maybe they should bear the brunt of the installation cost on this and go from there.
Let me answer several of your questions. Councilman Diana, your point is well taken about in the ideal world, it would be nice to have a median in the middle of the road, but I don't think 118 is wide enough. To your point, John, about the DOT, it was actually the DOT who suggested these lights to me when all I was doing was calling about a painted crosswalk, and they have approved it in other locations. I've been told that Port Chester and Mount Vernon either have these lights installed or are in the process of getting them installed, and I'm trying to check that out. In terms of the ability to get across, I think the only people who are likely to make that crossing are people who are interested in basically walking and hiking. And I don't think we're going to have a lot of, elderly people crossing there. This is designed to have flashing lights, which is a caution for the cars to stop. It's not a requirement. I'm being very honest with you. And this is what the DOT said. This is not a traffic light where they are required to stop. But when you see flashing lights, you see a painted crosswalk, you see people walking, I think it's logical that cars will stop. And this would be it's not the perfect solution. Would obviously be a traffic light like the one I use at Route 6 and Lee Boulevard when I am walking and cross over. But let's be honest, we're not going to get the traffic light there. not for, I would be optimistic if I said 5 years, and it probably could be longer. In the meantime, the trail is being used, and I think this would be, it's not the perfect solution, but it certainly would make it much, much safer for the people using it. And also with the Empire State Trail coming on board, well, it was going to be this spring, but with the virus situation, that's going to be pushed back. But there's likely to be more pedestrian traffic on the trailway, on the North County Trailway, which would cross over to this. I've discussed this with Dave Paganelli. Initially, my goal was to have the meeting with the Traffic Safety Committee, but at the time, Councilman Diana, I think you were out with the flu.
Yes,
so that kind of put that off. And that's when Dave told me to check this out. And I have suggested that if the board wants, that they refer this and get Phil Greeley's advice on this. We are facing a deadline because May 8th is the deadline for the submission to the Greenway for the grant. Okay, and I will tell them in the application that we will be submitting the permit for to the DOT for the highway work permit, but because of the coronavirus, we couldn't get it done, now, and we have all the specs.
Susan, I'm going to give you a personal story, and you'll understand where my head is. You have a similar light. No, you don't. Near the trailway on 118, where people park and cross the street and go into the trailway over there. I was driving there, and obviously I'm aware that there is a crosswalk there in addition to people coming across. Well, I'm driving there early one morning, and I'm going really slow. This kid had to be no more than 3 or 4, just took off in front of my car. And the father obviously was supposed to be watching the kid, but couldn't keep up with this kid. He comes behind the kid, and obviously he feels badly that, because you're supposed to stop there, and this little kid didn't stop there. When I think about it, and particularly on that road, 118 and Downing Drive, which is, I think more cars drive past that way than do all the way down on 118 near the other trailway. It's frightening for me as a mother. I know you say this will be for adults who are hiking, but they bring their children with them, and that's the part that frightens me.
You're right, Alice. People have to be careful, especially with children. I think everyone connected to this program, has children and knows the trials and tribulations of keeping a kid, in tow. So yes, it's an issue. And crossing 118, while I've been working on the trailway, yes, we have crossed it. We have to wait for the traffic, and it's not easy. People are doing it. All I can say is that the trailway is there. The town committed itself to the trailway project. People are enjoying it and are likely to continue using it.
Beautiful trailway. It's beautiful. I will not say anything against it. I'm just saying,
this will just make it safer. That's all it is. It will increase the safety. It's not perfect, but it will increase the safety. And it's really up to the town board to decide, because while the Trail Town Committee can do the application, unfortunately, we don't have those kinds of resources to pay the
only round of dollars that they're offering for this kind of grant?
I'm sorry, Matt, can you repeat that?
Is this the only round of dollars that they're offering for the grant, or is there another round later in the year?
In November.
In November.
It would be the next round, but the circumstances won't change any. They'll be the same.
I understand that, but I'm wondering.
Has anyone heard from DOT as to whether or not, I know, Susan, I know you've talked with them, and I know you wouldn't say anything that's not true or fair, but I would like the town to get some kind of indication from DOT as to whether or not they would want to do this, since it's their liability and not the town's liability.
You're 100% correct, Alice. It is a state road, and I think that the onus should be actually on the state. I mean, and Susan, thank you for your efforts with this trailway. They've been great. But if the trailway folks want to get the grant and then have the state do the work and so on and so forth, there, it is a state road.
Well, I don't think anyone. You talk to Matt, to John, to Alice, who's been up with DOT. We're not going to get the state to pay for this. All right,
we're not going to get them to pay, but at least we would have them chiming in as to whether or not they want this to happen on their road.
It's actually, more thinking about this though, folks. Honestly, it's a little bit more simpler for me. We spent all last week with our finance team, tightening the belt any which way we can with every department in the town of Yorktown, and to the tune of nearly, several $1 million. Now, if you're telling me that there's another round of dollars that are going to be available in November, I may be more comfortable deferring to that round. And in the meantime, working with our planning department and the Trail Town, because I want to reemphasize what Alice stated and also what what Councilman Diana had stated, which is our trails are proving to be just an absolutely incredible asset within our town. So we have to make sure that we're doing our part, and we're going to uphold our commitment to protecting our trails and enhancing our trails. But it's a bit more complicated in the short term financially. And so I would like to see more. I would like to see a commitment from DOT that this was something that can actually be accomplished, number one. And number two, from a financial standpoint, even though it seems small in amount of $7,200, every bit that we're trying to squeeze right now matters until we have a better footing of our financial situation. So I can just state that my feeling is that we should work with Trail Town hand in hand, that we should work with them to get DOT to give us written approval, and then in the November be ready to go for a grant application. And of course, I want to include our planning department and our highway department in that as well.
Matt, would you like to find out if we could maybe have Councilman Diana go back to the traffic safety and just find out what they're saying the effectiveness of, because I was thinking of the North County Trailway has the same type of flashing sign, just to find out what their thoughts are. What is the effectiveness of that? Is it a help, or as Alice pointed out, sometimes it could be a hindrance where the kids might assume, hey, they have to stop for me, and just fly out of that. So I'd love to get a little input from traffic safety and our PD as well.
I'm fine with that.
All right. Well, two things. I can definitely, obviously, postpone this until the November round comes around. In advance of that, Matt, would you want the town to make the application to the DOT for the highway work permit? Yeah, that's the only way that I think they'll actually approve it.
No,
if you want something,
I'm fine doing that in conjunction with John Tegeter and Highway Superintendent Paganelli. And I don't have any concerns about that at all. I think that is important for us to get that get DOT on board first.
I agree.
All right, so I'll work then following it up. Then I will try to arrange another meeting with the Traffic Safety Committee. If they're okay, and maybe John, you should get involved in that meeting when it's set up. And then if that group feels it's worthwhile pursuing, then the application for the highway work permit obviously has to come from the town. It can come from the Yorktown Trail Town Committee. But then we will start the paperwork for that and then work towards, and then by then you'll have a better sense of your finances, and then we can reevaluate this in September, in preparation for possibly November.
Right, because once you submit the application, we'll get how DOT feels about it.
Yeah, as I say,
By that point, we're going to have a better understanding of our financial situation, because what we're trying to do is really
I agree.
really get through the end of May with our finance team here. So, we've made excellent progress from a spending standpoint. I've received more figures daily from our finance team and our comptroller, Pat Caparella. Tremendous job for the taxpayers here in Yorktown. But I think we have to stay on that track for as long as we can. So I think if we can work and get the bureaucracy out of the way first and check the boxes there, and then have it all ready to go, so it's shovel ready and we can just apply for the grant, I think that'd be fantastic.
I agree.
Okay, then thank you for this consideration, for the time. And they say it was with a lot of humility that I even thought of asking you to spend $3,200. In these times, it was just a concern over the safety situation. But I will follow up, and that the Traffic Safety Committee will get an email from me tomorrow with John about setting up the next meeting. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to move on to resolutions. We have a few housekeeping. The first resolution resolved that the supervisors authorized to sign an agreement with the LaBerge Group for the preparation of a funding needs assessment in an amount not to exceed $5,000. As a reminder to the public, we had LaBerge come make a presentation. We have gone over this. I've gone over this with our finance team.
Right.
We're looking for revenue sources right now, and so this is the first step in that process. We think it's a wise investment in money. And we have a motion. Second. Favor.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we have a resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board authorizes the town supervisor to sign a stormwater maintenance agreement with PCSB Bank, located at 1990 Commerce Street.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a question, Devon. There is a typo, at the PCSB, and then next one is SPSCH. So it's supposed to be PCSB or two places. Correction.
Oh, you're saying Putnam County Savings Bank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second one is
she'll fix it.
The one in the bottom also.
Yeah. Adam, can you make that amendment in the resolution?
Just a typo.
Just a typo.
Yeah, I think it's deemed
Diana
amended.
can fix that. Motion.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
Second.
In favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's see. We have a resolution to authorize the town clerk to advertise bids for John Deere OEM parts for the highway department.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a resolution to authorize the town clerk to advertise bids for Cummins OEM parts for the highway department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then lastly, it's not on the agenda because the board discussed this in closed, and I just need to find my piece of paper. As everyone knows, or not everybody, but as most residents know, April 30th is the tax deadline for the town of Yorktown. There's been a lot of discussion regarding taxes, considering the ongoing pandemic of coronavirus. Just for the record, again, the town does not have the authority to extend its own tax deadline, nor do we have the authority to waive penalties and fees. That has to come from our partners in government above us. So the town board has a resolution that it would like to introduce and pass. I will read it in its entirety. States as follows. Whereas on March 13th, 2020, the town of Yorktown was the first municipality in Westchester County to declare a state of emergency in response to the coronavirus pandemic. And whereas, in an effort to protect local residents, Yorktown remains subject to the New York on pause order, and the true impact of this pandemic on the lives of Yorktown residents and taxpayers is yet to be fully realized. And whereas the federal and state income tax deadlines have been extended to July 15th, 2020 to provide relief to Americans and New Yorkers. And whereas notwithstanding the extension of the federal and income tax deadlines, Yorktown's property tax deadline remains April 30th, as set forth by New York State law. And whereas Yorktown seeks relief from New York State and Westchester County for those financially impacted by the coronavirus epidemic, and now therefore be it resolved that Yorktown, by the action of the town board, supports the proposal set forth by Westchester County Executive George Latimer to eliminate all penalties and late fees associated with the payment of real property taxes for those taxpayers financially impacted by the coronavirus. And the town intends to take action consistent with measures properly enacted by Westchester County through the Board of Legislators or duly ordered by the county executive to provide real property tax relief to Yorktown taxpayers. And be it further resolved, the town of Yorktown, by action of the town board, requests that Governor Andrew Cuomo and the state legislature provide assistance and relief to local governments and local governments financially impacted by the coronavirus for the benefit of residents and property taxpayers. And be it further resolved that the town of Yorktown requests the federal government provide assistance and relief to local governments financially impacted by the coronavirus for the benefit of residents and property taxes, as well as repeal the $10,000 cap on the state and local tax deduction to provide financial relief for Yorktown individuals and families. Upon the action of the town board, the town of Yorktown hereby recognizes and commends the fortitude and compassion of all the residents of Yorktown during the coronavirus pandemic. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And with that being said, just as a point of information for the folks at home, the Board of Legislators in Westchester County are poised to vote on Friday to reduce penalties and fees for late payments for property taxes. That is expected to be taking place on Friday. And of course, the town of Yorktown is going to implement any relief efforts that are handed down by either Westchester County or the state of New York. And with that, there is no other new business before the board, so I will entertain a motion to close.
So moved.
Motion.
Second. Aye.
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 Good night, everyone.
Good night, Yorktown.
Good
Bye,
night.
guys. Congratulations on a good
Good
meeting.
night, Gracie. Bye.